We're very privileged, before I start, to be here today. This is a normal thing that's considered in gatherings. What happens is we share a shayari and we can't the mehfils are full. Like you've seen even in this Milad Park, there are a lot of people, when it comes to the mosques, they seem to be reluctant. Allah bless you all, we're very privileged to be here. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidil Mursaleen, amma ba'd, fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Please repeat after me. Salatu wa salam alayki ya Rasulullah, wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah, salatu wa salam alayki ya Nabi Allah, wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurullah. نبيت السنة والاعتكاف. There are many blessings of reciting Durud Pak on Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let me share with you a beautiful hadith of Bakr. Who's been to Medina Sharif? Who's had the honor and the privilege of seeing that beautiful mountain of Awal Sharif in Medina Munawwara? How beautiful is it and how huge is it? I think it's several kilometers long, several kilometers wide. With that in mind, listen to this hadith of Bakr. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was reported to have said that whoever recites Durud Pak upon you once, Allah Azza wa Jal recites one qira'at sawa in his good deeds. Ya Rasulullah sallallahu, how much is one qira'at? It is equal to Mount Uhud. Itna bada sawa. Ek baar Durud Pak karne. Guys, first of all, we want smiles on the faces. This is the method of the Milad Pak and the Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A lot of you seem to be very tense, as if you've not quite got away from your worldly problems yet. This is the one method that you will find happiness in. So, thoda sa muskara ke nara lagaya, nara takbir, nara risalat, ya Rasulullah. Subhanallah. Now, what I wanted to do today, and I've only got about 15 minutes maximum, is to talk to you about the history of Islam. I want you to change your perception of it. In the Western world, the perception that people give of Islam is a very negative one, and they never give you the truth about it. Now, in a series of lectures that we've done on the last Milad Pak method as well, I alluded to this as well. And in the last two silsilas on Madani channel, you can go on to Madani channel English and you can listen to these. This was the Milad Pak from when the universe was created. So all the different prophets of Allah Azza wa Jal, all the different people before Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam blessed this world, what they said in relation to Milad Pak. Then we did a silsila particularly in relation to the time since Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's Milad Mubarak, what the scholars and the walis of Allah and the world generally has been saying about the Milad Pak. Today I wanted to touch a different topic. And I did it especially because I was hoping, like mashallah I can see a lot of youngsters, is that I could give you a total different perception of Islam today and how the Western world teaches it and how you should learn it. Now, if one looks at the different empires in the world, the different times, I want to show you today that the Milad of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was not only a pivotal event so far as the prophets were concerned, so far as the awliya were concerned, so far as the Sahaba was concerned, but for the entire universe. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was a mercy. And that I'm going to prove from history. So I want you to just concentrate for a short time, and I'm hoping that you'll come away with a different perception. Now, if you look back in history, and this is not behind me here, it's more of a lecture. If you look at history, you've got the Babylonians, you've got the Greek empires, you've got the Persian empires, you've got the Roman empires. Now, all these different empires, वो जो फरिश्तों ने कहा था ना कि ये अल्लाह ताला ये फसाद करेगा, कत्ल गालिब करेगा, give you an idea of that. These different empires that came over centuries and centuries before the advent of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. You've heard of Namrud and what he did, killed and maimed thousands and millions and enslaved others. Fir'aun, you know. Let me talk about the more modern superpowers, like the Persian superpower. They used to walk, enslave a million, and then say to the other million, right, you tell us what you want to do now. Dumbato. This was that. And you know, there were times where the streets were flooded. When somebody took over, a superpower took over a city, the streets were flooded with blood. And corpses used to rot and decay for months, because this was the way the superpowers worked. So when it came to, as this is Islam's glory, the same thing continued. And then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's milad back. But this was the central pivotal event. If you look at the books of history, this is not just a Muslim saying this. They will tell you that for hundreds and thousands of years, your powers used to go in and completely wipe out the existing civilization. When it came to Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the milad of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam changed everything. Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught the beautiful companions humanity, life, and everything there was to learn about this. And then showed it in the conquest of Makkah, where the Makkans the Quraysh who persecuted the Sahaba Ikram Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to the extent that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had to migrate to Medina al-Munawwara. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam enters this and they're shaking, they're trembling in their boots, thinking today we've had it. What's going to happen to us today? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he gave them all. But that was, we've all heard about this great conquest of Makkah and the conquering of Makkah. But let me tell you where it really went in the end. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave us the Quran, the beautiful teachings, the amazing Sunnah. Then, Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam put a veil between themselves and this book. It's a time for Hazrat Sayyidina Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. Now, at this time, there are a lot of things. You've got Musalma Kazab claiming to be a prophet, you've got other things as well. And you've got the world, because you've still got the Roman Empire, you've still got the Persian Empire. They're not as strong as they were. These superpowers had lasted, one had lasted 1,200 years, the Persian superpower, right? The Roman superpower had lasted 1,000 years. Yes, they'd split into two, long history, but they'd split into 2 or 3 different areas and different Roman emperors decided to take over, but they were still there. He launches 2 battalions, 2 armies, at the same time, simultaneously, sends one into the Roman Empire and one into the Persian Empire. Now these armies, the books of history testify that these armies were in number way less than the Romans, way less than the Persians. In terms of equipment, these Roman and Persian empires had everything, and these Muslims had no equipment beside it. But what they did have is trust in Allah and His Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now the battles that came after that, honestly, were amazing. Because these armies sent by Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala not only conquered the Romans and the Persians, but took over the whole of the Middle East and the whole of Asia. So that Islam was now from, Hind, Pakistan side, all the way through to Spain. Let me tell you something more amazing. A lot of people say that Islam was actually, Islam, a lot of people say, was spread by the sword. It wasn't actually. After these conquests, when the Muslims went to these lands, these people, they were saying, right, now we're going to be murdered, slaughtered, our women are going to be raped, our children are going to be killed, and we're going to be made slaves. And the beautiful companions of the Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, no, that's not going to happen. Our Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has taught us what to do. You will carry on with your lives as they are. You carry on, you want to govern your areas, you govern your areas. We will not force conversions to Islam from any Christian, any Jew, any Zoroastrian, anybody. Islam doesn't do that. You carry on practicing your religion. And the Sahaba Ikram set up with them. It was the amazing conduct of the companions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In the initial conquest, when Islam took over, 2% of that area from India through to Spain, 2% was Muslim. 60% of the Christian population was under the Muslims. And not one conversion back. It was like put a sword to their neck and say, right, you've got to revert to Islam. No. It was the beautiful conduct and the teachings of the Quran and the Hadith that meant that rows of thousands and thousands reverted to the beautiful Islam. Guys, these people could not believe when they were being taken over in Iran and the Persians and everybody else, when they were being taken over, they were saying, now, why aren't we being massacred? And again, the beautiful Sahaba Ikram said, this is not the way that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he said, where does this mercy come from? Because if you look at history, you look at the empires, the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians, there was no tolerance of anybody else. And yet, carry on living your life as you did. How amazing are you people? Where did this mercy come from? And the companion said, this comes from the mercy to the world of Rasulullah. Guys, this is Milad. Western history doesn't teach you that. But the true essence is that the world owes everything it has to at the feet of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And let me tell you, a lot of time we look at this technology today and say, the world's come a long way. I don't have to go to you with that one. All of this technology, it's come from the Quran. They bring the superpowers to their knees, right? From 633 AD to about 1112, this is 70, 80 years. Muslims owned everything from the Far East to Spain. They were ruling, but they were conquering the hearts of people. Then, what they did is they started to spread education. Baghdad was amazing. You looked all over the Muslim world, there were academies, there were universities, there were studies, botany, zoology and everything else. Today you don't say, the modern world and modern mathematics. They couldn't do mathematics. If you look at the Roman system, those of you in school who've done the Roman numerals and all that, it was impossible to add up and subtract and multiply Roman numerals. It was actually the Muslims who invented the true numbers. Muslims invented maths. Al-Khwarizmi focused on maths, invents algebra, invents numbers, creates arithmetic systems, and then algorithms. Who's heard of algorithms? That's what they use, all these things. Yeah, you've heard of algorithms. Actually, it was the Muslims who invented the algorithms. 1,200 years ago. 1,200 years ago. They invented all of this. And then, later on, Ibn Sina, the father of modern medicine, up until that time, you think the Greeks were good. The Greeks thought there was one medicine, it was affected by where the stars were. And this is taught in lessons. The students here today have done this in Al-Azhar as well. The Greeks actually thought that your diseases depended on where the stars were, whether a black cat crossed your path and everything else. And they would say, right, you are ill because of all these reasons. The Muslim scholars came along and said, what rubbish is this? No, the Quran teaches us something else. There are actually vectors, there are actually different diseases that form in different ways. You tackle them in different ways, you wash your hands. Today COVID comes along and you're talking about hand washing. Actually, Islam was teaching this 1460 years ago to prevent diseases. This is how amazing God Islam is. There was one thing that really, really struck me. All these scientists, they do all these experiments, they've got the Hadron Collider, and they've got all these particles and everything else. And then they say, when you trace everything back, it comes to a singularity. The Big Bang Theory. Actually, the Muslim scientists 1,000 years ago said this. And for those who can follow me, I'll try and explain it. But they said, as something moves from a certain point and it gets older, the amount of information about that particular matter increases. For example, as you get older, when you're a child, there's very little about you. As you get older, more information, more information, more information. When you die, actually you become more complicated, because when you decompose, your particles go into the air, go into the soil and everything else. So as an entity, you become more complicated. What the Muslim scientists said is this. Actually, we've done the research, we traced everything back. The whole of the universe is traced back to a singularity from where it all started. Today, that's your Big Bang Theory. It all traced back to a singularity. These were the Ashiq Rasul. These were the Muslims who 1,000 years ago discovered things which today they're telling you this is what we just discovered. You think, some of you will think that Newton discovered the laws of motion. A lot of youngsters will. Trace back the history, didn't. Trace it back, and it was actually Muslim scholars who set out the laws of motion 600 years before Newton even considered them. This is the reality. You have something that is absolutely amazing. You have an Islam that is beautiful. The problem is we don't know anything about that Islam. Let me tell you about optics, the glasses you're wearing. Who invented those? Muslims invented those. And they still use the same methods. You go into the operating theatres at Bolton Royal Infirmary, and the instruments that the Muslims invented hundreds of years ago are still being used on those operating tables. You look at the books of medicine that are taught in universities here, and the methods that are used, and the scholars that are quoted are the Muslim scholars. They know that. Unfortunately, we don't, Barrister. And I could go on all night. Coffee, Muslim invention. Tea, Muslim invention. Agriculture. They used to plant the same thing in the same place. When the Muslims came along, you know what they said? They said, you're all slaves, you're all planting, you're all farmers.
We don't work that way. Actually, you can have that piece of land. You grow whatever you want. And what they thought is these people are going to experiment to try and maximise their profits, and they did. And then they introduced crop rotation. And they introduced crop rotation. Today, that's what they do. But this was Muslim practices from hundreds of years ago. Whereas I mean, today we're mesmerised. What do you Western society trace back the culture. They were fighting civil wars here, dying of poverty, while the whole of the Middle East, from Spain through to Malaysia, was in bliss. There was zakat. People were going out to give money to the poor, but there were no poor to give to. That was your Islam. We just see today this Islam that these people portray. Imam Rashid, you're a terrorist, and we're stuck with that. No. When you look at the reality, read about the real Islam, and you will say that when it came to the Milad of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a mercy to the world, and this Milad Pak was not only a central event in the life of Muslims, but this was a central event in the entire creation of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah Ta'ala हमें सही इस्लाम समझने की तौफीक अता फरमाए. आमीन बिजाही नबी अमीन सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम.